you interested in real estate but worried it will become a full-time job? Or are you already doing real estate and wondering how you'll ever break free? According to a 2024 report by Buildium, more than 55% of independent real estate investors admit to performing maintenance and administrative tasks they know they should be delegating because they cannot trust the systems that they built. This is the quote-unquote active investor trap. It's where we confuse the motion of busy work with the progress of wealth building. Today, on Escape the Clock, I speak with a veteran investor and a real estate expert who learned that lesson the hard way. He figured out how to stop being the bottleneck in his own business and how to build a system that allowed him to scale his portfolio without scaling his stress. If you've ever worried that your obsession on return on investment is costing you a return on time, then this is the episode for you. Stay tuned to learn how to build a portfolio that serves you instead of you serving it. Welcome back to Escape the Clock, the show where we explore strategies and approaches for achieving financial freedom and having the option not to work. I'm your host, Daniel C. Rogers. Real estate is often sold to us as this path to passive income. But the reality is that it can become a high stress and sometimes low wage second career. According to a 2024 Bigger Pocket survey, nearly 60% of new investors say they underestimate both the workload and the stress that come with managing projects. Burnout is real. More than half of first-time investors say the stress made them consider quitting real estate entirely. They had come for the freedom, but what they got was pressure. And this happens because it's easy to confuse the grind with progress. We treat sweat equity like it's free labor, but it isn't. It costs us our time, our energy, and eventually our health. It's possible to build a portfolio that protects your time instead of consuming it. But to do that, you have to stop relying on your own labor and start building the systems and the strategies that allow you to scale without the stress. My guest today is Fuquan Bilal. He is the CEO of NNG Capital Fund and the author of Turning Distress into Success. He has spent more than 2 decades in the industry, evolving from a high-volume house flipper into a distressed note investor who manages a portfolio of real estate secured assets. Fuquan, welcome to Escape the Clock.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Escape the 9 to 5, right?
Exactly.
I used to play a game. What was the name of the game? Where you go around and get out the rat race. Robert Kiyosaki, Cash Flow.
Yeah, I feel like we've brought a whole new awareness to that game from this show. But yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. Your story is one of transformation, especially in the face of distress. I was looking through your book. You have so many fascinating stories. I do want to start with your philosophy, though. You mentioned that most people enter real estate looking for freedom, but end up building a prison.
This is true, right? You look at real estate as the escape. And if you're working and you're just passively investing with someone, then yes, that can work as you build up enough cash flow above your current expenses and, you're out of the rat race, right? It's financial freedom. But if you're actively doing it, it's a whole different story because it will command 6-7 days of your time, depending on how many projects you're working on and what you're trying to achieve, right? So you have to learn how to tame the beast. What I tend to do is fourth quarter of the year, I'm planning for the next year, right? I don't wait until December, maybe October. I'm looking at my planning for next year and I'm looking at family things first, trips I want to take, and I get that on the calendar and I start plotting things around it. And that kind of gives me some mental equanimity, knowing that, okay, the things for me, the whole reason that I'm doing all this, right? The business is created to fuel our lifestyle and what we want to do, right? It's not us. So planning those things first, and then building everything else around that keeps that mental equanimity in place and allows you to be freer, but you'll never be free, right? So that's kind of what I meant by that. People get involved and, they start creating these goals and they just go. And then they work in 7 days a week and they have no freedom. And that actually came to me from my son, because I've always talked about when I speak to investors, financial freedom and being passive. And, they see me running around busy all the time. And they go, I thought this was supposed to have you sitting on the beach with your feet kicked up. And I was like, no, it doesn't work like that. So
I love that now you are focused on kind of freedom as the anchor for how you're planning and how you're thinking. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I do know, though, it didn't start that way for you. And there's also, I don't call it a trap, but there is a common kind of mentality people have when they're going to real estate. More than 55% of small real estate investors report that they're doing tasks they know they should be delegating.
Correct. It's control. We're all control freaks, right?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your son. So maybe for those who haven't heard that story, take us back to that Home Depot moment. Because I know you said that you were very successful in paper, but in reality, you were doing a lot of the $20 an hour contractor work.
Correct.
So what was that moment that helped you reframe what was happening?
That was another thing. My youngest son at the time, we were trying to get a project ready, and Home Depot didn't make a delivery, and they had it at the place, right? And he was like, "Well, I'm just gonna go pick it up." And it was like 6 toilets and some other stuff. So I told my son, "Hey, you want to make some money? Come help me get these materials to the site, so when the plumber comes, they can get started." So we jumped in the truck, we loaded all this stuff up, we go to the property, we unload it, and he just looked at me. I was like, "Why are we doing this? Like, don't you have like contractors like that's doing this?" And I'm like, "Well, I got it." And I just stopped and looked at him like, wow, you're right. Why am I doing this? This is a waste of my time, right? I could have structured this to be different. And from that day, I haven't made any depot trips. So, but yeah, we think, again, control, that we want to manage everything and we want to go. And we never think about return on time, which is, it's the time is the most valuable currency that you have. And when you don't realize that, you misuse it. So, and you do low level tasks. There's always someone who can do that task better than you. That was a thing that I had to get over as well. The control mindset that no one can do this task better than me. If you train somebody the right way, and it's a saying that goes, when you delegate a responsibility and they can have and hold that responsibility, you become freer, right?
Yeah, I actually had that realization in my own career when I was doing project management work for these like mega corporations. When you start at a more entry level, you're kind of just doing everything yourself. You're like building the backlogs and you're running the meetings and you're doing all the tasks. Like delegation is not in your skill set. But then as you become a senior person, you basically build these more complex project plans. And then naturally through the scope of these things, you have to think, okay, I can't possibly do all this. What type of skill set would work best to delegate this area, that area, and so on. Yet I do know in real estate, a lot of people struggle to scale themselves there. Why do you think that's so hard?
It's all about get it, got it, want it, and have the capacity to do it and relying on your team members, right? If you want to delegate that responsibility out, they have to get it, got it, want it, have the capacity to do it. That's something I learned from EOS, a book by Gino Wickman. It's a really good book, Entrepreneur Operating System. When you have those team members that get it, got it, want it, and have the capacity to do it, then you can delegate that responsibility. There's something that we do every quarter. We draw like a square, a T, 4 boxes, things that I can delegate, things I must do, things that I can delegate out. And we look at that every quarter to see what are some of the responsibilities we could transfer over to give us more capacity to work on the highest level things. And I still do that today because I find myself doing things that I shouldn't be doing, that I should be delegating to other people. So every quarter you have to review that. There's something else I learned too from the next level of EOS. It's Rockefeller Habits 2.0. It's called Scaling Up by Vern Harsh. There's a lot of things that exercises in there that you can do where you can track what you're doing every hour of the day, like green, yellow, red. Red is the stuff that you shouldn't be doing. Then at the end of the day, you look at that to see how much time was in the red that you spent on tasks that you shouldn't have been doing. It could have been, checking your emails at a certain time instead of having it blocked in the morning, then in the afternoon, or being distracted by things that are not valuable to you. So keeping track of that is how you kind of manage that.
Got it. Yeah, that's super useful. I think hopefully people are taking away that it's never too late to think about what system can I put in place so I don't have to do everything myself, because our time is not this. It can be very liquid and it's not infinite. And there's a cost with giving our time away like that. I want to ask you, I want to still stay back in your history a little bit, if that's okay for a moment, because I do want to talk about this transformation. So if you don't mind, I'd like you to think back to 2008, which I know can be not a fun memory.
PTSD.
Yeah, right. And so, anyone who has been in the housing market, that date will bring back memories. But, the share of homes purchased by investors dropped by nearly 50%. From 2006, the peak of 2006, to the crash in 2008. And many, many amateurs and others who were kind of in the market were wiped out. And some of it, I would say most of it probably came from lack of cash reserves, but we can kind of get into the reasons and stuff. But the point is, you survived when thousands of active investors didn't. And so
it wasn't easy. That wasn't easy. That was tough.
I know. Yeah. How did you do that?
Well, I mean, really, I had to go deeper within. Pretty much everything fell apart. Marriage, because real estate was my identity. When the musical chairs, as they say, the music stopped, there was no chair for me to sit in. So it was a reset. And what I did for, I would say, the first 2 years from '08 to 2010 was really go more deeper myself, more reading, yoga, meditation, and figure out my why. Like, why was I doing this? And why did I have this business as my identity? So once I was able to separate myself from real estate and really work on myself more, that's when everything else became more, right? So that you read all these books and stuff, and you go to these masterminds, and what you really learn is the real wealth is within, right? The connections you make, the relationships you have, that's the true currency. Everything else derives from that. The money comes from those relationships you build, the inner wealth you build with yourself, how you carry yourself when you meet people, the relationship you create. Once you build that strong network, they say your network is your net worth. Then things started to turn around when I started to join masterminds and really focused on constantly evaluating myself, taking inventory of myself, and then how can I grow? What can I do more, right? Did I do the best I can do today? And start looking at the interactions I had with people and those type of things. And just being really a man of my word, doing the things that I say I was going to do. And those things really started to transform. And then my business started to pick up. And that's how I was able to rebound back by creating strong relationships, doing what I say I was going to do, communicating to my investors, executing. I'm a boots in the ground type of person. And that's really how I transform and rebound. It was a lot of mental gymnastics that I had to go through. If you can imagine having that as your identity and then the carpet gets pulled from under you, right? So it was pretty tough. But I look at that as the best thing that happened to me because I was not even in masterminds or going to the monthly real estate meetings. I was in the world by myself and I thought I knew it all, this young kid making a lot of money. And I was a slave of money. I wasn't a master of it. I was chasing, right? Wasn't a good father at the time. This money. And that kind of set me down and refocused me on family and the things that I should have been paying attention to. And that's when things started to turn around for me. That's how I rebounded.
Wow. Yeah. Kudos, man. I mean, like you took that as a springboard to growth.
Right.
That's amazing. I can see how that would set you apart and allow you to kind of persevere. You really transformed it looked like after that, both from kind of your building the network and doing all the personal journey pieces. But I know you also got into real estate secured assets. And for the listener who's not really aware of this, I mean, I know you were doing like, I think a lot of like land flipping and things like that back then, but then you kind of moved on from, instead of owning the dirt, you were moving to more owning the debt. Can you explain what a note is and how owning the debt, not the dirt, was really flipping the script for you?
For sure. I mean, my journey started in '99. This March would be 27 years that I've been in the business. And I started off flipping houses. Then when the market crashed, those 2 years that I went into like hiatus and working on myself, I discovered the note business and I started to learn about that and invest in it on my own. So fast forward 2011, 2012, I created NNG and I launched a fund and we started to raise capital to buy debt. And that's what we did for a few years. And then 2017, I kind of transitioned back into adding more diversity into the fund by doing more flips, right? I laser focused on debt. I was so excited about it. I was teaching other people. Also, it allowed me to build a download of buyers. I wrote the book, Turning Distress into Success. That's how I was excited. And the notes, to me, it was the best investment strategy in the universe. Still to this day, I think that is because it's a laptop cell phone, right? You get to help homeowners in distress and you work from your laptop cell phone. You can do it from anywhere. Versus if you're renovating projects, you're local to it. You're running around checking the status on it, stuff like that. So it gave me an opportunity to spend more time with my kids, help homeowners and everything else. So For a few years, we just did that. And then we started adding diversity into the portfolio by doing more flips again. From the note business, I was able to establish direct relationships with banks, tap into their REO department and get the REOs directly from them. And that's when I started to buy more flips and buy notes. And then fast forward to COVID, you were a bad guy if you were foreclosing on people. So, and attorneys were making all the money. People was renegotiating debt. It was just a bad time for that business. So we've kind of pivoted during that time out of the note business. We still have notes to this day, but we're not actively buying. And we transitioned to multifamily. We sold the smaller rentals we had here in New Jersey. We took the war chest to the Southeast, primarily Alabama and Georgia, started buying units anywhere from 40 units to 150 units so we can do our impact there. A lot of the real estate we did earlier on, and still to this day, when we were doing flips in low-income areas, it was from areas where I come from. Low-income areas had small rentals, providing housing for battered women and children, seniors who can't afford a rent bump. And it gave me a feeling of importance because I was able to go back to my community, revitalize the area, and give the residents a better place to live, and put the property back on the tax roll. So it's a win-win-win for everyone. And that's a lot what we do today. Our strategy today is a two-pronged strategy. We have two verticals in a fund. One is the luxury spec homes we now do. That's we transitioned to that after COVID also because the low-income market became such in demand. We had a lot of New Yorkers coming over. Prices went up 30% over list price. So we moved from that market to more of a high-end market and started to do ground-up construction, which the cash conversion cycle takes a little bit longer, but they're more profitable and more predictable, right? So we transitioned the monthly income to the multifamilies. So that's kind of where we are today with those two verticals in a fund.
Wow. That's amazing that you get to go in, use your expertise to help people by helping secure some of these loans for them. I mean, in a way, you're just playing the role of a bank.
Correct.
Kind of an obvious question, though. If this mortgage is paying you interest, that's how you are able to profit from it. Why is bank selling it to you? Why aren't they just keeping it for themselves?
Well, a note, you had asked a question that I didn't answer, so I'll double back on that, and then I answer this one. A note is an IOU, is a promise to pay, right? And a lot of people, when you go to a closing, when you purchase a house, and you sign that, and you owe the bank that money. They use a mortgage or a deed of trust to collateralize that note, to put a lien on a property, so if you don't pay, then they can pursue foreclosure to take the asset back from you. So the reason that banks they're not a collection company. They're in business to earn money on money, to arbitrage debt. So when they have regulations, when they have a certain amount of bad debt on their books, they have to book charge it off or sell it. So that's what the bank started to do. And after '08, there was so many, if you remember, houses that were in foreclosure. And then they came up with basically they couldn't really foreclose on anything. So they sold that debt to other lenders. That's kind of how I got into the space, and it became available to somebody like me because of the availability that the banks were giving us to buy those assets.
If someone owns a home and owes $100,000 on their house, and they're writing $100,000 check to buy the note, if I was the one that held the note, am I getting less for that because it's only what they owe less on their house, or how does some of the math work?
No, you get the full principal balance. So if they took out a loan for $100,000 and they paid interest on it, and let's say they paid some principal and it was down to maybe $98,000, I would buy the UPB of the unpaid principal balance of $98,000. The homeowner still owes that, and then they owe all the back arrears and interest as well. And then basically I would buy that debt and I would call the homeowner. I wouldn't lower principal, but I would renegotiate terms by maybe a lower interest rate, or maybe give them a 40-year amortization or something like that where the payments are lower. I had to figure out where they are now in their life and what income they have to support the payment. So maybe before they were making, back then, it was a 12% loan, the note was, and maybe I can write it down to 8%, and their payment will be lower, thus more affordable for them to pay. And then what happens is once that note gets seasoned, meaning I collect 6 payments or more, I can then go out and sell that note. Now, the unpaid principal balance probably was $98,000. Maybe I paid $50,000 for the note, right? So the equity is between the principal balance and what I paid. Once it's performing, then I can sell it for the 90% of the unpaid principal balance and make my profit there. And you can do all that from your laptop and cell phone. You don't have to run around, check properties or anything. So
It's a little mind blowing, I think, for many who haven't considered this before, right? Because a lot of us think about real estate portfolios as either the low option is buying REITs, which isn't really getting into it, or, buying deeds. And that can be a lot of risk and work to try to acquire homes. And not necessarily you have to flip. You could be just paying fair market price or negotiating and just trying to rent and do things like that. That's what I've done. But I can imagine you could build a portfolio of notes. Since you've done this and you figured this out, if you had done this back in before 2008, how would you have compared during that time compared to just owning a bunch of homes? What do you think?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I knew some people who got in 2009. There's a company called PPR, which is my mentors. They actually taught me to know business. They got in 2009 and they had the opportunity to ride the wave from that market where it was huge discounts on this paper. And they still do it today. I think more today, they buy more business structure loans. But yeah, that if I would have started back then, it would have been a different story because it was the Wild Wild West back then.
Yeah, so I imagine it's matured a bit. What's liquidity like here? Do you find that, because real estate is famously a bit illiquid, do you find because you're getting interest and stuff on these notes, you find you're getting more liquidity in a different way?
You can borrow against them. They're assets also. You can do collateral assignments and borrow against the note, just like you could borrow against the property. It's a performing asset that has collateral against the property in the form of a mortgage or a deed of trust. And you can use it as collateral to borrow against. And you collect the payment from the borrower, you pay the interest on it. So maybe if that same example I gave you, you had a $98,000 unpaid principal balance, you bought it for $50,000. You was able to rehab the note. The borrower starts making you payments, let's say, of $700 a month. You can now go and borrow $50,000 from that on that loan at 10%, where you're making payments of $500 a month. You're collecting $700 a month, so you still have another $100 arbitrage that's coming to you, and you was able to recoup back the $50 in the form of a loan on that note and go repeat the process. Then when the note is seasoned, you can sell that note for maybe $80,000, pay off your lender, and then make some profit there as well. So it's crazy.
Nice.
The way those spreads are. But there's a lot of regulation today. Back then when I first got started, Dodd-Frank and all those guys really wasn't putting out a lot of regulation. There's bankruptcy laws. There's a lot of things that's changed since then. Even when I came in was the Wild Wild West, and things changed around 14, somewhere around there, 2014, 2015. A lot of the regulations started to come in place. By the time 2017 came, you had to have licenses and all these other things. So that pushed a lot of the smaller players out, like the mom and pops that got into the business. And it became more institutional buyers buying a lot of the paper. So there's a lot of people that's still in the business, that's still buying notes, but not at the price points or the level that we were doing back then.
Yeah, another consequence of the 2008.
Yeah.
Let's touch on the practicalities of how this works. Someone might be interested in this and wondering how they could get started with it. How do you go about finding how to acquire a note, and how do you know you're making a good investment there? How would you advise someone new to this?
Yeah, there's a lot of Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups on notes. People can join those groups. There's a lot of educators, a lot of people, especially on YouTube, a lot of people, doing education on that, where they can research. Even on my YouTube channel, if you go to Fuquan Bilal, you go back 5-6 years, you'll see I was doing a lot of education and posting online on notes. I think one of my first live presentations I did is on YouTube, probably from like 2013, 2014. Is when I started to put the education hat on and training people. And the goal of that was to educate people, educate investors before they invested, and also to help me build the down line of buyers, right? When I would buy the product from the banks, I needed people to sell it to. So when I was educating people on how this thing works, I was also creating potential buyers as well. So there's a lot of information on my YouTube channel. And today I would imagine there's so much information about it.
Awesome. We'll make sure that's all in the show notes for folks. Kind of curious though, should someone already be in real estate? Imagine they're like a listener, maybe they're grinding on 3 rentals right now. Does it make more sense for them to transition to notes, or could this be really anyone who's trying to get into that market?
Be anyone. You need capital though. You're going to need 50 to 100,000 at minimum to play with. And more than likely, you're going to probably buy some second mortgages. Those are smaller loan balances that give you more diversity. So that's pretty much It could be anyone. It doesn't have to be someone who already is in real estate. It's just someone who's willing to spend the time to get educated and learn more about it before they invest their dollars.
In particular, you're talking about second liens.
Yeah, you can get into the first mortgage space. You'll buy what's called low balance loans, probably like in Ohio or Pennsylvania, somewhere, Pittsburgh, where, the values are less than 100,000 and it's a first mortgage. Some people, play that market, Alabama, rural areas where it's less than $100,000, because usually you're going to pay, 60, 70 cents on the dollar. And sometimes more, just depending on the area and the equity above the house and the condition of the property.
Gotcha. So people should be kind of pricing themselves in based on market with how much capital they feel like they could bring into it.
Absolutely.
I'd love to ask you about scaling, because you've been doing this for a while, and time, as we mentioned, is so important, but yet it's so easy to lose it, especially when we're having success. The data shows that most investors never get past 4 units because they hit a wall of just operation fatigue. But a lot of times, there's a lot of that's grinding instead of having the systems in place like you were talking about. So how do we think about graduation between scaling up, which is more doors, to scaling over, which is having just better assets in the portfolio?
Yeah, I like the latter, right? You should always look at scaling to be better instead of bigger. Those are mistakes that I made trying to grow too fast. We don't have the right systems, processes, and standard operating procedures in place. So we had to land a plane and work on operational efficiency to scale to be better instead of bigger. So that's kind of where we're focused on, looking at your current operations. What can be more efficient? What can you do with what you currently have instead of trying to do more, right? People always think, if I buy more deals, I'll make more money. And you actually wind up losing money. I was having this conversation last night at an event with another developer, and he was telling me he was doing 4 to 6 deals, and we're talking houses that sell for 2.5 to 3.5 million. He was doing 4 to 6 deals a year, but he scaled down to just do 2, because what he found out was he make more money doing 2 deals a year versus 4 to 6 deals a year, because his carrying costs, operating costs, expenses are less. And he gets to laser focus on those 2 deals that he can actually get, because he was actually working on 4 to 6 a year, but he was actually only closing 2 a year. So he said, if I just focus on those 2, I can fix them and sell them and work on that. I'll have more profit. So that's scaling to be better instead of bigger, right?
I wanted to ask you about legacy, because I know family is really important in your life, but it's something that a lot of us struggle with. Like with success, we're building wealth, and we move from accumulation to protection, but 70% of wealthy families will lose their wealth by the second generation because not doing the work to make sure that our heirs are prepared to manage it well. Like we don't pass on all the soft skills and things like that. And so since your son was a catalyst for your change all those years ago, now that he's older, and you built this great system, what is your definition of success now? Has it changed? Has it evolved? How are you thinking about setting him up for success?
That's actually one of our company core values. Success is an optimized experience that's sustainable over time. It's an optimized daily experience sustainable over time, right? So a business can't be successful. Only the people that run that business can be successful, right? I mean, when it comes to legacy, I've always taught my boys, it's not what I leave for you, it's what I leave in you that's going to really keep you going, right? So they actually here working with me now. They do some cold calling, some lead generation, stuff like that to kind of learn a business. And this is by their own will. So I was very proud of that, them watching me grind it out and see the results of what I built, having an interest in it, because it doesn't go that way for most people. Most people want to go out and do their own thing, which is nothing wrong with that either. It's whatever you're passionate about. But that's success for me, to see that they're carrying a torch and they want to continue to move forward in that direction. But I just think, success is an optimized daily experience, sustainable over time. There's something I learned from one of my mentors that really taught me what the definition of success is.
If you could go back and talk to yourself in the past, what would you tell yourself? I know you've gone through a lot, you've evolved, you've learned all these things, you're teaching your sons. Well, how would you help yourself?
Focus on you. That's what I would tell myself. A lot of the years of me grinding out, I've always focused on fixing other people's problems and not focusing on myself. So when I started to do that, I started to feel more fulfillment instead of, I don't want to say anger, instead of, what's the word I want to use? I don't know, regret or something that I really didn't do the things for myself, and I kind of focused on helping everybody else. So I would say focus on you.
At this point, what does your future success look like? I know time is something you're using, and you have systems and reinvent yourself. You're able to lean into notes and other things in your portfolio. You've diversified. You've done all these great things. But what is your ultimate success metric?
Well, it's the business is people, strategy, execution, and cash. And for me, what it looks like is having, all those in order, because it's usually not all balanced properly, the people part being the toughest part of the business. So, that's what my focus is getting all those in order where, there can be more internal success with myself being happy about what I built, the systems and processes I put in place. So seeing those all in alignment is what future success look like to me.
And what kind of systems are you using today? Is a lot of this spreadsheets, or you have like a CRM system in place? Like what kind of thing?
We have this CRM, AI, standard operating procedure that we built with SOPs to make it easier for people to understand processes, especially when you have new people coming in. The SOPs we developed for our rehabs, for multifamily, whatever we're doing, asset management. And a lot of times in business, people just go. And it's great to hear when you have somebody come work for the company and they go, I've never worked for a company who actually had a standard operating procedure for everything they do, right? It's just when they come in, you sit with the person who's doing it, they train you. And then now you have all of the knowledge. No one else knows it. And then when you leave, they got to retrain somebody else instead of having a system where if you're out or on vacation, anybody can jump in and go, what's the next step in this process? And anybody can do it. So you're not hostage to one person in your company.
Yeah, that's how you scale with protecting your time. Otherwise, you're just spending all your time doing the same training over and over and over. Oh, Fuquan, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us today. How can listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
Thanks again for having me. I'm all over social media. They can go to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, at Fuquan Bilal. We post a lot of the projects there that we do. So if you want to see what some of our renovation projects look like, if you're interested in becoming a capital partner or I would like to learn more about your investing journey, you can go to NNGCapitalFund.com, schedule a discovery call. I like to talk shop and like to know if we're a fit for you, if you were looking for passive investing, or just, to learn more about your journey, if I can help you in any way.
Hey, thanks again, and best of luck to you, your family, and your business.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on the show.
In my conversation with Fuquan Bilal, what jumped out to me is that real estate freedom is not something you stumble into. It's something you build with intention. What Fuquan shared today is something many people need to hear. Working harder does not create freedom. Systems do. Structure does. Clarity does. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking we can just outwork a bottleneck. But doing more does not give us our life back. Doing the right things the right way does. Fuquan's story was one of struggle near failure and transformation. He was grinding away doing the hard work himself, sacrificing his time to scale his business. And when the 2008 housing crisis hit, instead of folding that business, he used that time to reflect on what was important and revisit his strategy to real estate. Instead of leaning in and grinding harder, he decided to work smarter and began to buy up notes to service loans himself. This gave him time back. And that was time with family and time to work on himself. Buying and holding notes is something anyone can do if you have some capital to buy in. And sadly, people get into trouble with mortgages they cannot afford. Banks don't like the bad debt. So coming in and refinancing on the homeowner's behalf can actually be a win-win. Fuquan used that strategy and was able to get back into his first passion of building and flipping, but it wasn't a sink or swim situation anymore. He was diversified. He could focus on quality over quantity, doing better with fewer properties to make more money. We noted earlier that more than 55% of real estate investors admit that they are doing tasks they know they should be delegating. Real estate is a dream for many, but it doesn't have to be a full-time job. It can be a source of cash flow through interest on notes or rental checks. And with the right people and systems, you can stay hands off and let the cash flow come in without stressing about toilets getting delivered on time. Scaling over instead of up means optimizing the business at a scale that's manageable. And if real estate is part of your legacy, we know that 70% of wealthy families lose that wealth by the second generation. So putting the systems in place to make it easy for people to join the operations, including family, can give you something to live on even without you, just like Fuquan has built. So if you're looking into real estate as part of your plan, don't forget to bake the systems in place early as the seed to grow with the operations. That way you're protecting the most important asset you have, your time. I'd love to hear from you. How do you plan to delegate some piece of your life to make things a bit more manageable? Leave your comment where you listen or email me at contact@escapetheclock.com. I'm Daniel C. Rogers. Thank you for listening and best of luck building systems, not stress, and escaping the clock. I'll catch you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Remember, while I'm not yet a financial planner, I am getting my degree in wealth management. You should take anything you've heard here as tips and advice to making your plan. To learn more, visit www.escapetheclock.com. There, you can find the book, resources, including the planner, and you can even schedule time with me. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.